Nuggets beat the Timberwolves. It was a really entertaining, a really, really fun game, even though the T-Wolves were without Karl Towns, without Rudy Gobert, without Naz Reid. They hung in there, and I thought for a minute that they were just going to ride the emotion and ride that wave and beat the champs. But the champs just did what they do. Like Michael Porter Jr. found something in the fourth quarter. Jokic hit 35 and 16. And it looks to me, Howard, that Jokic is about to join this 3 MVP club. That I count MVPs, at least modern MVPs, from the time that the media started voting, which was in 1980. Like when the players voted, it was a little wonky. It was a little weird. Like you had years where, Bill Russell won MVP, but was all NBA second team behind Wilt. Like it was just weird. But for all intents and purposes, here's the list of 3 MVP players: Russell, Wilt, Kareem, Moses, Bird, Magic, LeBron, Mike. It feels like Jokic belongs in that category, assuming that he wins. Whether he wins or not is immaterial. I feel like he belongs in that room. The resume that he's putting together, and I'm penciling Denver into June. I don't know who they're going to be there against, but I'm penciling in the Denver Nuggets there. I feel like they're at the peak of their powers. The champion, heart of a champion, all that type of stuff. The resume that he's putting up, what fascinates that about you? You know what I mean, to you?
So it's interesting because it's these unofficial clubs, right? The 3 MVP club or the 3 in a row MVP club, which people seemed reticent about Jokic joining when he was up for possibly a 3rd straight last year. And I try, there's 2 ways of looking at this. There's you and I having this discussion on a podcast where we just talk about like the scope of the NBA and NBA history and like how do we place guys and all that. We could talk about, the top 10 of all time, top 20, where do guys fit into all this? And then there's the fundamentals of just like balloting. Like I always focus on the season itself. I don't care if this means we're now elevating a guy to some other. You can't look at it that way. Does Jokic deserve to have 3 and be in the club that you just threw out there? I don't care about that in the moment that I'm voting. The ballot is the ballot. The field is the field. Jokic is the clear leader right now. I don't know if anything's going to change that in the next few weeks, but we'll see. The idea of Jokic being in that club, so separate discussion, right? Ballot discussion's over here. Historical discussion. I mean, he is one of the most unique. Every frickin' grammar teacher I've ever had will just like smash me over the head, and every fucking copy editor will beat me over the head. There is no such thing as most unique. You're just either unique or you're not, or what. Sorry, everybody. I apologize. He's one of the most unique players we've ever seen, and everybody in that category, in some way, was so distinctive that we think of them as a one of one, right? And there might have been, like we had some Michael Jordan clones or Michael Jordan wannabes or guys who patterned themselves after him. We've had, since Wilt, there have been a bunch of other dominant centers, but nobody quite like him. So there are reasonable facsimiles of. But most guys who are in that level, that tier of legend, are one of one. Jokic is one of one. He really is. And he is like the fully realized version of what people have been referring to as positionless basketball, a center who plays like a point guard. And like, if he ends up with this 3rd MVP, I mean, he's going to end up with one regardless. Like, maybe it's this balloting cycle, maybe it's next year or the year after. Eventually, he's going to have a 3rd and maybe more. And I don't think we should be worried about, what club that places him in. Like, he's got at least 1 title. We'll see if he's going to tack on more. Again, I think that's a separate discussion. You don't necessarily need multiple titles to justify your multiple regular season MVPs. These are separate things. The dude's legitimately great in a way, and he's great in a way that we've never seen anybody else be great before.
Right.
I'm fine with it.
No, I have zero problem with it. I think what goes a little understated about this, Howard, is he's probably one of the greatest player development stories we've ever seen in NBA history.
2nd round pick? Yeah.
Not just from where he was drafted, but from how he played. Like, he was clearly undervalued in the terms of scouting and everything else, but just from where he came from as a rookie and developing and hitting these different markers. And big men often take a longer time to reach their full potential compared to everybody else. Like Shaq, I don't think won MVP until year 8, maybe, in LA. And I think you covered Shaq.
Yeah.
in that 2000 season, and Shaq had been through different iterations of himself, but became a full-grown, devastating, both ends of the floor monster that first year with Phil Jackson. And I say that to say, man, this dude is so freaking good. Like there is a difference between, like, you put Oklahoma City there, the Timberwolves are there. Those three teams are battling for top seed in the Western Conference, and not just top seed. They're battling to see who's going to face the winners of those play-ins, which you can look at it and say, all right, maybe they want to play the Lakers. Maybe they don't want to play the Golden State. Maybe they don't want to play Phoenix or Sacramento, whomever. I don't think Denver gives a damn, because Denver at this point is so inevitable. Like, they know what, you can close your eyes and you know what sets they're going to run in the last 5 minutes of the game. Pick and roll with Murray. You put Jokic somewhere around the top of the key to the free throw line, and you just wait on the double. If they come with the double, here comes Aaron Gordon sliding down to the dunker, or there goes KCP or Reggie Jackson, whomever else is on the floor, and he's going to look left and pass right. Like, there is literally an inevitable feeling about him that almost makes you feel helpless. And I don't think this league has felt helpless against a particular player probably since Jordan. Not even really, and maybe Shaq in a different way, but you had to worry about if Shaq was completely in shape and Shaq was completely motivated. And even with LeBron, because LeBron could have some brain farts, even at the most critical elements of a certain game and at the peak of his powers. Like when he won 4 out of 5 MVPs, I think did he squeeze 1 title out of there? I think 2 titles, because he had those 2 titles on the back end of Miami. But even then, there were questions about the Heat as a team. Could they get it done? I feel like we're fooling ourselves, Howard, if we think any team can truly challenge the Nuggets. What I feel like what everybody else is asking is, who's matching up with the Nuggets so, y'all take them out. Like, we don't want to deal with them. Y'all take them out, and then maybe our path to the finals will be easier. Nobody's looking around and saying, we'll volunteer to take on the Denver Nuggets. We'll be the ones to take out the Kings. I don't see that at all.
Yeah, it's funny because we talk about how many, like, plausible contenders there are, like teams that we say, like, oh, the Clippers, at their best. Yeah, I could see them going to the finals. I could see them potentially winning a championship. And then you go like, Thunder and Wolves, well, they're really young, but they're really talented. And yeah, they've got the goods. They could make, but in every case, it's to your point. It's like, who's knocking out Denver first? Because if Denver's out, then it's like, oh, I can see, like, there's a path for the Warriors. There's a path for the Lakers. There's a path for the Suns. But you're right. Like, it still comes down to, like, okay, because I've done this exercise before the season. If you had asked me Nuggets of the field, I'd say the field. And that wasn't a slight at the Nuggets. It's just a recognition of 2 things. One, it's really freaking hard to repeat in this league, and it doesn't happen very often. And the teams, and this goes to point 2, the teams that do repeat, Vinny, are usually teams that are just stacked, right? Yeah, it's LeBron and Wade and Bosh. It's Steph and Durant and Clay and Draymond. It's Shaq and Kobe. It's Michael and Scotty. And Denver fans, some of them get offended at this, but I'm sorry. Like, it's Jokic and an ensemble. And I know Jamal Murray's constantly bumping up against All-NBA and All-Star and everything, and he's always hurt at the wrong times. And it's not that he's not talented enough to be in those conversations, but, like, he's not that guy at this stage. They don't have a true second star in the same way that most, especially repeat champions, have. Right. That's not a knock. And by the way, it is reflective of the era that we're in, right? Giannis in an ensemble, Kawhi in an ensemble in Toronto. We've had a lot of ensembles. Even the last Warriors championship was Steph in an ensemble. Right. These are not super teams. So because the Nuggets don't profile as the consummate, dominant, multi-year NBA powerhouse, I do look at them as, like, vulnerable's like too strong of a word, but there's a little bit more vulnerability than if you had, another top 10 player next to Jokic. They don't. That's not a knock. What they do at such a high level that I don't know if anybody could actually beat them, but there's a little bit more margin for error for the opposing team, because if you can somehow slow up Jokic, good luck, a couple of times in a series, like he so much relies on his playmaking and scoring and his everything then I think there's a little bit more of an opportunity there for opponents. But still, you mentioned the last few minutes of a game. They're not shooting themselves in the foot. They're not making mistakes. So you have to be perfect down the stretch of a game, and that's kind of what we saw in that game last night. And granted, Minnesota was shorthanded, but still, like if it's close, the edge goes to Denver every time because they're just going to do everything right in the last 3-4 minutes of a game.